Oh my god, I have been speaking. I'm so sorry. I just realized my microphone was turned off. So I'm saying that we are doing the whole idea of this event is it's something that product managers, project managers, business analysts tend to face when they deal with their projects. Excuse me, I'm a little bit unstable at the moment. But don't worry, I get a grasp of it. I do this very, very regularly, but I still get nervous every time. But I got this. So my first speaker today who will be joining me on stage is Chioma Oko. Chioma Oko, I will just bring you up and say hi, Chioma, and give us a brief introduction about yourself before we bring up the other speakers on stage. So, Chioma, the floor is yours. If you can hear me, please go ahead.
Yes, I can. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chioma. I am a product manager at Collie, where we work on a construction product to help construction professionals plan and do everything that they are supposed to do easily. I've been a product manager for 2+ years, and that I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chioma. Please give a round of applause. Welcome, Chioma. So the next person I'll bring on stage is my big sis, my adopted big sis. Backstory. So Tomore Idowu, we have worked together from the moment I saw her. I'm like, I like this woman. I'm not going to talk plenty. I'm just going to let her introduce herself. You can see her pretty smile. That's my big sister. Please, nobody should try me because
Oh my
she come
goodness.
for you. So welcome to our audience.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Nice to have you here. Good evening, Chama and Halel and Liz. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this panel. My name is Toboredo, like Liz said, and I'm a project manager. I'm also a trainer, and I work mostly within the health sector, providing digital health solutions to INGOs across the globe. So it's my pleasure, and we're just going to be talking through what we do, and I hope you have a nice time tonight.
Thank you, Tobore. So the last person we're gonna have, so that you don't think it's an affair of women, you don't think it's a women affair. Is a guy. He's the only man that is blessed amongst women. You understand? He's the only business analyst that you need. That's what he said. It's not what I said. So I'm going to say, welcome, Hallel Rain. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself and don't fade into the crowd. Introduce yourself and let's get this party started.
Thank you so much, Lady B. I really appreciate being here. Hi, everyone. My name is Halorine, and I am an IT business analyst. I've been in the IT sector, and what we focus on is building revenue generating softwares and systems for both government and individuals. So I'm happy to be here, and like Tobere said, we'll just be sharing our daily experiences with you, and we hope that these experiences are going to be a lot of help to you. So thank you so much for having me once again, Lady B, and I'm happy to be sharing the stage with the likes of Chama and Tobere. Thank you so much.
I'm happy to have you. Did you hear that voice? If I wasn't married, boy, I toast you. But that aside. So welcome again, everybody. So the whole idea of this is just to hear from their lips because these are people who deal with stakeholders very regularly. And we're going to start with the first conversation so that everybody is on the same point. We're all brought home. I'm going to ask in no particular order, and I'm going to start with Chioma. How would you define a stakeholder, just so that our audience understands what it is that we are trying to do here? Who is a stakeholder as a product manager? Chioma, I cannot hear you if you're speaking. Is that me? Okay, I think there's a little bit of a network.
Yes,
each.
I think it is.
So I'll let Tobore go with the same question. Define who a stakeholder is in the context of a project manager.
Okay. In those days, I used to think that when you just hear stakeholder, it means some very special people on the project. But what a stakeholder really means is anyone, I mean, anyone who can be affected by the project or can have an impact on the project. So they can either affect the outcomes of the project or be affected by the outcomes of the project. So you want to think the owner of the project, which we call the sponsor. You want to think about the team members who would work on that project. You want to think about regulatory bodies. Are there some regulatory bodies you would need to work with? Are there some vendors you would need to work with? Are there some policymakers you would need to work with? So, in project management, it simply means anybody who can be affected by the project or can affect the project. So, it's very important that you gain clarity on who your stakeholders are from the get go of the project. Now, when you look at the initiation document of any project, which we call the project charter, you would have, at least on a high level, you would have people that the project has already identified as stakeholders on a high level. So you would need to look into that and begin to develop a stakeholder register where you will document all these people, what their roles are, what their needs are, what their influence is on the project. Do they have some power on the project, or are they just neutral parties on the project? So, in a nutshell, that's what it means. Just remember, anyone who can be affected or can affect the project. So that's what a stakeholder is.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tobore. I feel like it should go on and on, but there's a lot of questions to answer. These questions are coming from early product managers, business analysts, people who are like, okay, you know what's happening? Who are the people that I deal with on a regular? So, Halel, do you want to throw more light on what a stakeholder is from the context of an IT business analyst? Since you're the only business analyst, so you're the only person to talk on this.
All right. Before I dive into the question, I would just like to say that for most of the questions that we are going to answer here today, it will be important for us to note that yes, there are responses. So you can just give me a moment. Yes. So there are responses that are textbook in the sense that, oh, this is what they taught us about this particular topic and what have you. But there are responses that are real, like this is what you have to do in the real life situation. Right. So when we are answering these questions, you might have to differentiate between what are the textbooks responses and what the real life response is. Okay. So like Toberi has rightly said, when it comes to understanding stakeholders, it is anyone that your project impacts or can impact your project directly or indirectly. And the first thing is to recognize them and then to know how they can impact your project either negatively or positively. So I don't think there's any other thing to add to that.
Okay, sir. If you say so, then there's nothing else to add to that. Thank you so much, Choma. You're welcome again. I understand you had a network glitch, which is fine. And we have just started by talking about who a stakeholder is, and we're going to move to the next question, where I would like Choma to go first for this one. So, Choma, I am asking, we know who a stakeholder is, anyone who can affect or be impacted by the project. So, as a product manager, who would you say are the most important stakeholders that you interact with? And how can you identify them early on in your project?
All right, thank you very much for that question. So, I'll say the most important stakeholders that I interact with would be the customers, the executives that I work with, the engineering team, marketing, and early on in the project, I identify those stakeholders by doing a stakeholder analysis. So, once we know the product we want to build, once we know the solution we want to work on, There is an exercise we do called stakeholder the or identify the stakeholder that will be key to delivering that product. So early on as a product team or in a software product team, you know that you need your engineers, you know that you need your marketers, you know that you need a QA tester to ensure that the product is fine. So there are some staple cross-functional teams, the design team that you know would be a stakeholder, and then of course the executive holders that you're working with because they also guide as to what decisions you'll be making and how it will affect the business as a whole. So that would be my answer to that question.
All right, thank you. You have mentioned a lot of people, but you have said that the most important for you as a product manager will be your customer. Sorry, there's this fan blowing my hair all over my face. So thank you for that. Tobore, as a project manager, who would you say the most important or a typical stakeholder that you interact with on a regular day? This is outside anything extra.
Mhm. So I would say there are two. There are two. One is the business analyst on the client side because they seem to understand all the requirements. So I'm checking in on the requirement needs to ensure that we're meeting that expectation. And then the other set of stakeholders that I keep my eye on is the project team because they are the ones that are actually delivering on that project, making sure that we are crossing every T and dotting every I in terms of requirements. Because in project management, it's about the requirements. What does the project require us to deliver on? So we are looking at that and then measuring that we are meeting those expectations. So on the client side, it's because many times the sponsor maybe is high level and they have a business analyst that has put all the requirements together so we can bounce back and forth for clarity and make sure that we're meeting those expectations. So I'll say those two categories are quite important.
All right. Thank you so much, Tobore. That is very insightful. I feel like I want you to shed more light on that. But let's hear from our only business analyst that we need. Hello. Hello, who would you say as a business analyst? Tobori has said a business analyst on the client side is one person should interact with very well. But as a business analyst, irrespective of whose side you're on, Tobori's side or my side as client, who would you say is a typical or the most important stakeholder that you interact with?
For me, it's I would choose the sponsor or the representative of the sponsor because for me it's more or less like they are the owners of the product. Yeah. So whatever you're doing, if it's not in line with what they want, you're just running around in circles. So most of the time, especially in my role as a business analyst, like Lady Soboro said, if she likes to interface with the business analyst on the side of the client, which is actually fantastic because the business analyst actually knows what the client actually wants. Yeah, so for me as that business analyst, I like to be in constant communication with the sponsor or the representative of the sponsor. Right. So I know that whatever happens, I'm not off track for any reason. Right. I'm not off track for any reason. Then the second best stakeholder to put as a priority is the user of the end product. So what usually makes business analysts and sponsors argue is when there is a thin line between what the user wants and what the sponsor wants. So that thin line is usually very critical for us as IT support to actually understand how to balance, right? But these two critical stakeholders are what you need to understand as a business analyst. That okay, I need to measure and manage their expectations. It's usually more difficult because most times the users are not there presently, especially if it's a product that users are a whole public, but if it's a product where the users are maybe around you, you can ask them questions, it's easier, right? But you have to make sure you strike a balance between the end users and the sponsor because they're the ones paying you, so you have to find a way to balance that. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, I like that. I like when you say the end user and the product sponsor because who are you building for, right? If not for your end users. And like I said, who's going to sponsor you if you do not take into consideration this project sponsors. So I'm going to move on very quickly to our next question. Now, there are times that, of course, because stakeholders have influence and or impact on our project, there are times where we might not be meeting their expectations, or they are giving us expectations that are you human? Expectations where you go like, what is the problem? So, Toberi, I'm going to start with you, please, because I like listening to you speak, and because you're my big sister, so you get the floor first. So, how would you manage unrealistic expectations from your stakeholders? Now, and also that's like a two-in-one question. So, where you have been able to manage them, how would you communicate where you have limitations? So, say your expectations are not unrealistic, but you have limitations. How would you communicate this? And say the expectations are very unrealistic. How would you manage that with your
Okay.
stakeholders?
So that's one document that's usually very helpful from the beginning. It's the scope of work. In that scope, it tells us exactly what we are meant to deliver. Another important document is the project charter. The project charter tells us the expectation and the assumptions on this project. And we would have mentioned some constraints or some risk from the get-go. So if a stakeholder is asking for something outside the scope of work, then we have to, redirect them to what the scope is and our constraint at this time. Because the thing about change, it just looks like, oh, just a little change. But every change you bring to the project has an impact. It's either going to be impacting your schedule, which is your time, or it's going to be affecting your cost, or it may even affect your resources. So we need to bring data that we have available to let the stakeholder know that for XY reason, this cannot be handled at the time. Now, before we get to managing this, that's why in the beginning I said you need to have a stakeholder register. You need to understand the power at play. What stakeholder holds the power? What stakeholder has the influence? Some people may not have power, but they have influence. Some people have both power and influence. Some people don't just like the project and don't want it to succeed, so they will give you trouble. Some people are just bystanders, they're just neutral. So you need to know who has the power, who has the interest, high interest, and you can map your stakeholders based on their needs, their power, their influence, their impact. And then you would now know how to communicate to each one of them. So when you're dealing with one like this who has um, issues with you not wanting to take up their extra needs, you need to be able to communicate clearly that based on the documents before us, based on the data we have available, this falls out of scope of the project. Or if we take this on, it's going to have an impact on this side of the project or the other side of the project. The thing that we must take out of this is that in every project, the project manager is communicating 90% of the time. So you just have to communicate in clear terms, state the objectives, state the assumptions, state what the scope of work is, and then be able to manage that stakeholder. That's what I have to say.
Oh wow, I really don't think you have gotten to the end yet. I'm just like, Well, if I wasn't moderating, I'd probably be because I have to take down. Thank you for that. Chioma, let me hear from you how you manage unrealistic expectations. And I'm asking you specifically because as a product manager, people want to build apps, people want to do products, and sometimes what they want in their head, they just feel like it makes sense. You know that thing where you wear a dress in your head and you're like, okay, this makes sense until you wear it on, right? So how do you wait to not wear the cloth on before you see that it does not make sense, and how do you manage unrealistic stakeholders and communicate limitations?
All right, thank you for that question. So I'll start with unrealistic expectations first, and I'll just say transparency is key. So in product management, before we begin working on a problem or a solution, So I would say in software product manager, there are two ways you can go to explain better. So you could either be working on a product for an organization. So for instance, if Lady Tobori wants to build an application for her PMP course, for instance, we know that we have a client and we are working on her product. So it becomes sort of like project management within product management. But you could also be like my company now where I work, where we are building our own product. So we've identified a need in the society, in an industry or in a sector, and we want to meet that need. So, in the case of building a product for a client, everything that Lady Tobaria said goes. So, you need to identify what stakeholders' opinions and says matter most, and then you deal from that perspective. But from the perspective of meeting a need within your company, and addressing those expectations. You then need to, because your client is someone you are meeting their need based on assumptions you've made, based on research you've done, you then need to go back to those research or search out for clients, right? So if a stakeholder, for instance, the CEO of the organization comes with an unrealistic expectation, the way I would communicate that to him would be to use data. So, for instance, if a new feature is to come into the product development flow late, or and it to affect the timeline. So, and they feel, let's say the CEO or whoever is bringing in this new idea feels like it's so important to the project that this has to be added now. It's a communication of, okay, this is what we had planned, this is when we expect to go live. If we add this as a new feature, this is how it will affect the feature. Are you willing to allow the product to get delayed, which would lead to so and so losses? So at the end of the day, I'll say transparency is key. To deal with expectations that are not realistic, the reason why it's not realistic is because there might not be enough information. So if all the information is on the table, okay, so this that you want also do now, this is what it would result to. Once everybody is able to agree that, okay, this kind of delay is okay, we can delay the product release 1 more month because I really feel this will be important for our customer, or our customer will need it then. Everybody agrees and then we can push the timeline. But if not, and there would actually be money lost, or the customer that we're building for would get or would not be pleased with this new development, then we put on hold those expectations, right? And if everything is clearly outlined, everybody can make a decision that everybody will leave happy with. And I'll go to your first question on how to know in advance if the clothes you want to wear, to put it in your own words, will not fit. I'll say it's to go back to data. So in starting or working on a product, you would need to have done research, and you have a semi-clear idea of where you need to get to from the start, which you then have to work on every day. But from the start, and you know where you want to get to, if if an idea or an expectation should come that doesn't really fit in with that timeline. So in product management, we create roadmaps that help us or guide us. So it's a rule that it's not a set in stone roadmap. It's not, oh, I create this roadmap from now till July, or let's say December, and we must meet everything on this roadmap exactly as we have said. Then it will no longer be agile, it will no longer be meeting the customer needs. It will just be a brigade approach. So if we are more flexible with our roadmap and new thing comes in and but it doesn't fit, you would know because of what you have planned. You will know because of the features you have said, okay, this product needs to have this. You will know when you prioritize. So that's where I would say our prioritization frameworks come in. So as not to take too much time in answering this question, we have prioritization frameworks that help us know if this particular decision, new feature, new addition, new tweak here or there would actually help this product be better, or we can put it off for another time. So those are the strategies I'll say I use in managing these things. Thank you.
All right, that sounds exciting. I didn't feel like I wanted you to stop talking because I'm like, okay, okay, okay. So I can actually check that my clothes does not fit before I wear it. And that's based off of data. Oh, did it fit before? Has this happened before? So we avoid wardrobe malfunctions. Thank you so much, Chioma. My business analyst, sir. Blessed are you amongst women, sir. Do you want to throw some more light on this, or do you want us to move on to the next question?
I would like to applaud the responses that we've gotten. Yes, that is very true. But for someone like me who has worked with for my projects, presently I work mostly with government parastatals and government individuals where they are dicey to work with. I would say you'd have to learn to be diplomatic. You have to learn to be a politician when you have to work with these guys. You have to know how to you know work with them, sell what you need to sell to them at a certain point in time, make them believe what you need them to believe at a certain point in time. Because the truth is, in as much as the project is theirs and they have expectations that are off the roof, and you know that okay, if we go with what they are saying exactly how they are saying it, it's going to affect the outcome of the product or the project, right? So it's critical for you to just understand how to be diplomatic with them, know how to manage them, know how to let them realize that it's not that we're not going to do what you want, but let's do this first in order to get to just find a way to be diplomatic about it. Because if you're if you're quick to say, oh no, that's not possible, oh no, that cannot be possible, and whatnot, it might muddy your waters and make things difficult for you as a project manager, as a business analyst per se. Because in as much as the sponsor has the whole say or has the final say, you have to learn how to manage them. So the bottom line is learn to be political. Sometimes you just have to learn to be political. Then if it's within your office space, stakeholders within your office space, let's say different departments and whatnot, you need some politics also. Know how to get under people's skin. Like the dev team is telling you, oh, this requirement cannot be ready, or we cannot deliver this, have these deliverables ready for you at agreed time because of this or because of that. You need to know how to manage them, know how to sweep them up, know how to get what you need from them. So as be it project manager, product manager, or as a business analyst, learn how to work with people. If you don't understand emotional intelligence, when you get to this point, if you're being so straightforward, you hit a lot of roadblocks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if I may jump in, when he was
Yes,
talking
please
about
jump in, my big sis.
when he was talking about government, I was just remembering my days of working in the public sector space when I was in banking. They can be they're a wonderful set of people to work with. And like he rightly said, your soft skills have to come to play when you're trying to manage difficult people. You have to be emotionally intelligent. You have to know when to speak and how to speak to them. Like one of the things I found very helpful was trying to be on their side. Look for things that they've done well and they're excelling on in that project or even outside that project. Blow their trumpet a little bit. It just lets them drop those guards. And then talk about some general things, maybe football, it may be something that is trending, and then they're more relaxed. And then you slip in that serious discussion that you came with. It just helps to make to water the ground when you come from that perspective. And especially when you're coming with data, so that it doesn't look like you are attacking their person, but this is an issue. And this is how the data is speaking to us about the issue. So we need to be on the same page to ensure we deliver on this project. Otherwise, the project is either going to be delayed or it's going to cost us more, or we can even sit down and see where can we compromise. What are the main priorities? Can we all agree on the main priorities? And then do we have some leeway to introduce one or two of these ideas in the form of compromise that will not affect the project? And can we document that change? So once they see that you're on the same team, that resistance will kind of, drop down. So that's what I wanted to add. When you're dealing with public sector individuals, you have to bring your A game. It's not about facts alone. They can frustrate you with the facts, but you have to go with a lot of soft skills, and then you go with the facts. Those days I will even buy granite or roasted corn, whatever is in season. We'll drop it there. We'll be gisting. We'll be talking about football, and then we slip in the serious conversation. That's something that has really helped me in the course of my journey.
Wow, helpful tips, helpful tips. I like that. So don't go all serious, serious, serious. Nobody's going to attend to you actually because they're not your friends. They don't know you, right? So you want to do like the sandwich method, you put the joke, you slip in the seriousness, then you put the joke again. And I mean, we are Nigerians, so play it to you. And one thing Halel mentioned is emotional intelligence that I find very, very useful for engaging with your stakeholders. So that brings me to my next set of questions. To be emotionally intelligent, how do you strike a balance between over communicating and under communicating with your stakeholders throughout the project's lifestyle? How do you know you're not saying too many things to them? How do you know you're not excluding information that they should need throughout the project life cycle? Choma, if you want to go first, if you're open to going first, then we can have you.
Okay. Yes. That's a really good question. And I would say the um the the key way to understanding how to navigate between over communicating and under communicating is to understand their involvement level. We've spoken about that and it's very important. So you need to understand how involved each stakeholder is. So some might need detailed updates while others require just high level information. That saves time and also increases respect from the stakeholder to you. So for instance, you're speaking to your CEO and you would need to pass across information on the product you're working on. So depending on the kind of organization you're in, if it's a wider organization with more employees, the topmost level executive might just need high level information. You just want to know, okay, are we on track? Are there any blockers? What are we doing to resolve the blockers? Are we on the move? Are we going live soon? And those high level information. But if you're speaking to your line manager, for instance, you would need to give more detailed updates. So regular check-ins and how everything is going on a day by day basis. So I'll say the key is to just understand their engagement level. You can have concise, clear status updates depending on who you're speaking to, and then that would help you maintain the balance between talking to someone who would need everyday information on what you're working on and high level information. And you can also one thing we encourage is have open feedback channels. So apart from the product manager always going forward to present these things, if open feedback channels can be created so that they don't have to schedule a meeting or make a special request to communicate feedback to you. You are then able to keep whoever it is you're communicating with, whether it's a customer or a team member or even an executive, you're able to have a constant flow of communication. So everything is not coming at once because that's another way of over communicating. But everyone is kept abreast of the progress on the product. And
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you. I like that, Chioma. Um, so I don't know who to bring up next. Hello, let's hear from you as a business analyst. How do you strike the balance between over communicating and under communicating? Over communicating and under communicating. How do you strike that balance?
All right. Thank you so much, Lady B. I'll just share this story. In my organization, when I joined newly, my practice normally is to, understand the way things work, understand the line of thoughts, understand the reporting structures and whatnot. Okay, yes. So the structures and whatnot. Then also understand the project itself. That understanding is going to help you to know who to communicate more to and less to. A typical example is I remember when Shoma was speaking, she said for line managers give them more information, for the top management give them less information. But in my situation it was different. My main boss wants to know every nitty gritty. He wants to know everything that is ongoing at every point in time. Take for instance today, there was a break on our project, and I needed to timeline shifted, right? We agreed that we're going to get some deliverables by this weekend. We need to done tomorrow, and the developers sent a message and it's like, oh, it can't work again. It has to be Monday or Tuesday, and we need those deliverables for an engagement during the week, right? And in a normal scenario, I should report to my line manager first. But understanding how our system works, I had to report to my main boss first because he likes to have those information. He doesn't like having information late. So the most important thing is understand your system and then know how to communicate within that system. Jonathan, know how to communicate within that system. So that's just it basically. So I think the trick is understand your system. You cannot know it at once. Yeah, you
Mhm.
can't know it at once. It's a gradual process. Yeah, thank you.
Oh my god, I like that. Understand your system because what works in Tobore's company or industry might not work in mine. So Tobore, do you want to throw more light on this? I see you wanting to say something.
Just to add to what both of them said, it's interesting because, like you said, what may work on one project may not work exactly in another project. So the question is, what expectation does each stakeholder have? We need to understand their expectation. So, like Rain actually rightly said, he has someone that you will expect high level information, but that person wants to hear all the nitty gritties. That's his expectation, and you need to meet that expectation. I've had a line manager who was just interested in the summaries, and I've had another line manager who was interested in every detail. So it's my responsibility to know what the expectation of each stakeholder is and be able to meet that expectation. So for example, it's like even in marriage, right? There are certain stakeholders in your marriage that just want high level. Just give me just you can have one husband say, just tell me how much you need for shopping, and he's fine and he'll let that money, flow to you. Another husband will say, can I see the list as well? So they're just different stakeholders. You need to understand them. They're just different. Understanding them will help you know how to communicate with them. So, like Chama said rightly, if you're talking to someone who needs summaries and you're giving them a lot of granular information, in their heads, they're wondering if you really know what you're doing. Like they feel you're beating around the bush. And then if you're talking to someone who needs granular information and you're just giving them high level, they'll think there's something you're hiding and you don't seem to understand, you don't have a hang of the project. So you need to understand each stakeholder, their needs and their expectations, and then you're able to communicate. And then you also have to find out how they like to be communicated to. Some people just want a text message. Some people want a detailed email. Some people don't consider text message or WhatsApp as being communicated to. They like that formal email setting. Some people like graphs and charts because the graphs and charts speak better to them than just words. So it's about managing those expectations and then understanding how they would love to be communicated to. So that's where I'll drop it.
Lady B, can you unmute?
I'm so sorry. Sorry, forgive me. I said I like the analogy of the husband, and I like that it's not just enough for you to understand your system, you also want to understand how these people want to be communicated to. Thank you so much. Chioma is out network problems, but I'm just going to move on to the next question that I have. Now, we have said that some stakeholders want to be communicated to in one way, some want to be communicated to in another way. But where you have stakeholders who are resistant to change or they are disengaged and They're just, I don't know, they're just being, I don't say difficult because I don't think people can be difficult. I think situations make people difficult. However, how do you handle stakeholders that are resistant to change? What tactics have been effective so that people like me now, I mean, we can also apply to our everyday lives because we have stakeholders in our everyday lives as well. So how would you handle people who are resistant to change, or disengaged? Anybody can go first. Yeah. Let me see. Tumbo, tumbo, tumbo. Okay. Chioma, let's hear from you. Chioma, if you can speak. Okay, I don't think she's here. Hello, let's hear from you. Blessed are you amongst the men.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So now regarding this, what I would say is this: everyone has a pinpoint. Everyone has a pinpoint. Everyone has a sweet spot, right? So the first thing is if you meet a difficult stakeholder or a difficult, okay, the DB said there's no difficult individual or someone who doesn't want to bulge. The first thing I would say is this: give it space, think about it, do your research, find out about the stakeholder, know how to handle the stakeholder. Critical example. So the project we're running presently, there's this particular stakeholder who is part of the project, contractor obviously. He's part of the project and he was on ground before we came, but they made us lead consultants and he's seemingly feeling acting difficult per se. Sent a very funny mail. That was this week, yeah. Very funny mail this week. And I met my team lead. I was like, okay, how should we react to this? She just told me, let's leave it, And when we spoke to our boss, he said, we should just leave it that where they're assessing the situation. My take home from that is most times when people do those things, they want to see your immediate response. So don't be in a hurry to know how to handle it. Calm down, think about it, do your research, know why, ask yourself questions. Why are they doing what they are doing? Right? Why are they doing what they are doing? And another way to think about it is everyone has a pinpoint and a sweet point. You can get anyone from these places. So what do I mean by pinpoint and sweet point? So if you meet someone who doesn't want to bulge to your to let's say what you want or what you think will help the project, or they're insisting on what they want, it's very simple. Find out why they're doing what they're doing, and then if you know that there's an authority that they cannot say no to, like that sometimes when there are some stakeholders who want them to fall in line and they don't want to fall in line, all we do is just have the head of service send them a letter and they'll just answer. It's so simple. But there's sometimes when they do those kind of things, we'll call them for meeting and put refreshment everywhere and everybody will all calm down, you understand? Then when you start talking they start listening to you. So it's only a matter of understanding how to manage the situation per time. So, well, critically, if you think about it, there's actually no one that is difficult. It's just for you to know how to handle that particular situation. So, I think that would be it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Halil. Have you considered ministry? Because I feel like School of Ministry is calling your name. Tomorrow, do you want to throw light on this? You want to throw more
Yeah.
light on this? Yeah, I'm listening.
So, working with difficult people has been my thing, especially when I was in banking. I used to have a thing for difficult people. And like Halel said, there's really no difficult person. If you can find their sweet spot or their pain point and then show them a way out. I recall one time I would go to a government parastatal and I would say to them, the way you are writing your schedules, I can see loopholes there where someone can take advantage and defraud your organization. But there was just this resistance. Oh no, you don't want to treat our transactions. Oh, you're going to take our time. So the question is, we have to ask ourselves, why the disengagement? Why the resistance? For this client, I realized that it was about time. They just felt they didn't have time to be, taking schedules up to the Oga to sign after he has signed the cover letter. The cover letter is enough. And let me tell you what they did. So they signed the transaction on the cover letter, but you have six other sheets with information, bank details of people to credit, and there's no signature on it. Just plain A4. It's not even on the company's letterhead. It's on plain A4 papers. Anybody could rip that off and introduce a new paper. So they wouldn't budge. And I was looking like I was the difficult one. So guess what I did? One day I took the schedule, ripped off what this attached to it, introduced something new with some random names and account details. And I took it back to the woman and said, I've just paid these people. I just wanted you to know. And then she was looking at the schedule. I don't know these people. Who are these? Who are these? And I said, this is exactly what will happen one day, where someone will just rip out what you've sent, and this is how you're going to feel. You would have paid 200 million to four random people that you know nothing about. Why? Because I could just change the A4 paper easily and then put the letterhead with the assigned signatures to it. Immediately, she called her accounts team. From today henceforth, my signature must be on every page. That's exactly what I've been saying all along, but they just didn't get it. So now I had to act it out. And then it was clear that this was a disaster waiting to happen. And immediately the policy changed. For some other clients who feel disengaged, they may feel that the project is not relevant to them. So why bother? So it's your duty to let them see that the outcome of the project is going to affect either them personally, or it's going to affect the team, or it's going to affect the larger group, which is the company. And that's a good thing. So they need to just see. Maybe they're not seeing all this long story we're talking about. And the moment they can see it, then they begin to feel like, okay, this is good. For some of them, they are disengaged because they feel they should have been part of the decision making process. And as long as you didn't call me in, then don't ask me questions. So our duty as a project manager is, first of all, try to identify why the disengagement, why the put off, and then we will now begin to navigate what can make them become more interested. And interestingly, some people is family. I'll tell you what I did. Once I walk into an office and I notice you have lots of pictures in your office, family pictures, I just know you're a family person. You hold family in high esteem. So that's where we start the conversation from. Oh, this your daughter is very beautiful. Ah, she looks like you. What's she studying? And then they start telling me about the children. And then every time we're talking about this daughter who's reading engineering, before you know it, all that toughness has melted, and then we can now talk project. For some of them, they have lots of awards in their offices. You just know that this person is an achiever. So when you get there, you fan the flames and start telling them, oh my God, this is so cool. When did you do this? How was it? How did you feel? And it makes them feel so good. And they're telling you all these stories. And before you know it, you can get them on your side. So you can't do projects without soft skills. Honestly, we call them power skills in project management. You just need them because you're going to meet all kinds of characters on every project, and you have to just manage them. You have to find a way to get everybody to be on the same page, on the winning team, and get the project to completion. So that's where I'll leave it.
Ah, I wish you didn't have to leave it there because that is a
I'm telling
lot.
you, actually,
So, Chema, I see that you are back. Ah, hello. National Grid has fallen on your side. Apologies. Apologies. Chema, I see
we'll be
that
back
you're
soon.
back. So, who are stakeholders who are, oh my God, did my network just flop? So, we're talking about handling stakeholders who are resistant to change or disengaged. I don't know if you want to throw some light on that before we move on to our next question. Then we'll take two more and we'll wrap up.
If you can hear me, can you repeat the question?
Oh, definitely. So we're talking about in handling resistant stakeholders or stakeholders who are disengaged, stakeholders who feel like why am I here? What's my business? Even though you think that they should be here. So have you encountered such and she has left? So network has not been very friendly today and it's been a struggle, but we overcome by the blood of the lamb. So I'm just going to move on to the next set of questions, and this is around feedback because it is important that you get feedback from your stakeholders. So, Halel, what are the effective feedback loops that you have built with stakeholders to ensure continuous engagement? So, what approach is effective for you to create a feedback loop that is effective for continuous engagement and alignment? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I do. I do. Okay, so my network has been in and out, so I'm not sure if what I'm going to say has been spoken about already, but I'll just go for it and I'll keep it simple. My approach is having regular touch points. If every week I'm going to be meeting with Chioma to hear about the progress on this product, then my mind is prepared and I'm also ready to give feedback. Those are for reviews that we can have with internal team members, right? And then if it's sprints and with customers, you work at a company where they do lives every week to get I've been having issues on this product. I can come on this call and I can speak with people that can help me with it, right? So if we schedule times where you can meet your stakeholders, this time regularly every 2 weeks, I can give and hear product on this product. And also if there is a
So, Nigerian network again. All right. So, we're talking about feedback loops, creating effective feedback loops that is ideal for continuous engagement and project alignment. Halel Tobore, does any of you want to go first on this? I'm going to let you decide.
Hello, you can go first.
Okay, all right. So for feedback loops, this is usually decided at the beginning of a project. Actually, once the communication lines have been set, those are the most effective ways to create feedback loops, right? So stick to what has been already been established from the onset. So I talked about government before, and for government, most of the time, there are two major ways you have feedback loops with them, and that is either through having physical sessions with them or through letters. Yeah, like paper letters, actually. Yeah. So for you to communicate with them, you must send them letters. Yeah, and send them letters from an authority figure or an office that they respect, right? Or invite them for sessions and make them feel important. That's another good way to get feedback loops from them. So then within the project, like in your office or within the development team and the rest of them, you just have to stick to the communication channel that was approved during at the beginning of the project. Once you can stick to that, yeah, I think having feedback loops would be very easy. So whether you're using Jira, whether you're using WhatsApp, whether you're using Telegram, whether you're using Trello, whatever it is, just stick to it. Whatever is happening, let's make sure that it's on that particular medium for everyone to see. I used to do something. So what I used to do is I used to communicate personally with the business analyst on the other side, and I realized that my boss started having the impression that I wasn't doing anything. He just felt like, this guy, you're not doing anything, you're not working. Why? What's going on? So I now realized that I need to stick to the general communication platform for everyone. So if there's any issue whatsoever, I go to the group straight. And then I made the business analyst understand, guy, I'm just doing my work. So it's not like I'm calling you out or anything that something's not working. No, that is the communication medium that was established at the beginning of the project. So you have to stick to it. If not, stick not speaking to get ideas. Your line managers, your bosses, people are going to get ideas. So just stick to it. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was nice. So like Halal said, at the onset of every project, we need to define our mode of communication. How are we going to be communicating? Who's meant to be communicated to? What's the frequency of the communication? So if we're saying we're going to have meetings, how regular should those meetings be? Is it weekly? Is it bi weekly? And who are the people, the stakeholders that need to be in those meetings? So you may have two sets of meetings. Maybe one is an internal meeting where you're meeting with the project team, and that's once a week. You can have another set of meeting where you are meeting with the stakeholders and you're giving feedback on the progress of the project. Now, one thing you have to be mindful of is, for instance, let's say we've agreed that we will meet every Tuesday, and at the end of every meeting, we would circulate the minutes of the meeting that would include the action points, the timelines, and the people responsible. We would circulate that via email, and any other communication from client to project team should be done by email. You may have some stakeholders who feel that because they have your phone number, they would want to communicate with you on the side. Remember, everybody in that team needs to be looped in on the conversation. So when you're beginning to have phone conversations, you've blocked some people out. So what do you do in those kind of situations? I try to let the client know, that particular stakeholder know that, well, we need to loop in others on what you're saying. So would you mind doing a mail and refer, or if you want me to do the mail, I would refer to the phone conversation we just had and document everything you just said and ask you to confirm that I didn't miss anything. So that way, you're able to loop everybody in. Otherwise, you will find that you've taken information from somebody at some time, but you can't find documentation for it. And then you start wondering, who said, I know someone said this. I know someone said we should do this, but you can't remember. You start looking like an unserious character. So when I have clients, trying to go, maybe I won't say backdoor. Sometimes it's backdoor. They really know what they're doing. They don't want to document certain things. Some of them, they just feel, oh, it's quicker to call you. So whatever the case may be, from experience, I have learned that whatever is documented in black and white, you can defend anytime, any day. But once it is verbal, it becomes your word against mine. And what will play out at the end of the day is what was documented. So keep everybody in the loop at all time. That's why it has to be defined from the get-go, and make sure you carry everybody along. For my project team, we are always using Jira so that we know what was said. I always say put every information there. It's good for audit trail. 2 years down the line, another team needs to look up what was done and make some changes. They don't need to be calling you. They just need to go through those tickets and understand what happened and where that change occurred, and then they can work on it. So it's very important. Set the standard from the get go, find out who needs to be looked in, how often they need to be looked in, and you would have a great time working with your client.
Wow, so Maria, have you considered writing a book? Having a book on the stakeholders because you should put all of these down, document it in black and white, like you said. Chama, do you want to come in here very quickly? We'll take two more questions and we'll wrap up because our time is fast spent. How do you approach sorry feedback loops? How do you create feedback loops to ensure continuous engagement and project alignment? Network again. This is Nigeria. Okay, so we'll progress. Chima, when you're ready, you can come online because we cannot hear you at the moment. So, very quickly, I'm going to take the last two questions. And I'm sorry, did someone raise their hand? Because it sounded like someone raised their hand. I heard the teams. Okay, so last two questions. Forgive me.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, my layout. Yes, yes, I can hear you. Do you want to talk on the last question before we proceed?
Um, could you go over the question again, please?
Okay, Choma, the question is how to create effective feedback loops for continuous engagement and project alignment.
Oh, okay. Okay. So for that question, I think totally Toveri and Halil have done amazing work answering those questions. I especially love how she mentioned managing even feedback that comes after you've created those loops. So, for instance, you have a meeting and ensuring that if somebody is calling you on the side, you're having that documented. Those are all amazing answers. So, I was going to still say the same thing earlier, and that would be ensuring that there are regular touch points, which I'm also Halil touched on. So if we have regular touch points, all the stakeholders know that okay, at this time, this day, this month, I'm having a meeting with Chioma to discuss the progress on this product. I'm going to hear and give her feedback on what has been done. That helps them to prepare ahead, feedbacks to give you, and also I would advise opening it up. So for instance, if you have physical meetings or virtual meetings and there are regular times that have been set up, there could be more open channels that could be made available. So in between this meeting and the next meeting, you could use tools such as Slack, Jira. If it's with your customers, you could use your emails or your blogs to communicate to your customers in between meetings, things that might happen before your next scheduled meeting. So I'll just say that regular touch points are what I would prioritize or ensure that is in place so that our customers know everything that is going on and also every stakeholder is kept abreast. Because if those touch points are there, even when a meeting by be missed, you can always have um, a call back or they might reach out to you. Okay, what's up? What's happening? This was meant to happen at this time. So having consistent, regular touch points helps to ensure that the feedback loop keeps going, and in documenting and acting on those feedback is what helps the stakeholders want to come back over and over. So action is very important.
All right, Shoma, I'm going to take you up on that very quickly and ask you how you prioritize feedback from your various stakeholders, especially when resources are limited.
Okay. So I actually touched a bit on this question earlier when you were asking about wearing a cloth or knowing whether a cloth you want to wear would fit, right? Instead of fitting. Management, we use prioritization frameworks, right? So to understand or to justify decisions that might be made, especially when resources are limited, we then need to sit down. Okay, this is something new we want to do. We haven't done it before. How would it impact the product? How would it impact the team? And the most common could haves and won't have. So if you're able to break down the new ask into what must the product have, what should the product have. So anything that is not a must have, you then use data
Oh my God.
and empathy, as Delivery had mentioned earlier. And
Well, Shoma, I really want to hear this response from you. However, network says we should not brief. But we are going to brief because we're Nigerians. So, very quickly, Halel, I'm asking how you prioritize feedback from your various stakeholders, especially when resources are limited. You have already told us who your most important stakeholder is. Um, so the just if that important stakeholder does not give you feedback on this, maybe the person is neutral. How would you prioritize then? Because that's I don't tell you before. Look where you take me.
Okay, thank you, Lady B. You were breaking up for a moment there. All right, so I'm going to start by saying, like I already said, I prioritize what comes from my sponsor as number one. That's Alpha and Omega, right? And then if it's a kind of project where I get a response from the end user, then I also put that as a priority. But internally, meaning within your organization, you have to prioritize. It would be easy. It would be too easy to say I'm going to prioritize my boss, right? But no, I would say that I would prioritize who the most important deliverable is dependent on. Let me explain, right? So if there's a particular deliverable that needs to come out immediately. Like take for instance now, my project is at the stage of sensitization, and like for sensitization, there are a lot of sensitization materials that need to go out, a lot of things that need to be put in place. At that point in time, who we're going to prioritize is our printers, those doing the shirts, those doing the publication materials. Those are the
Yeah.
people we're going to prioritize, right? So at that particular point in time, my boss should wait. My boss should wait. Who I'm going to put my pressure on, or who I'm going to prioritize giving feedback to, or their feedback is what these guys that are printing what we're going to use for publication are saying. So if they are saying, I cannot get that thing ready, or my boss is calling me, my boss will wait. We have to make sure that everything that is necessary for sensitization is on
Yeah.
point. So that's pretty very important for me.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So my boss should wait. I didn't tell your boss that to his face. I say, but you gotta wait. So, Marie, do you want to throw some light here before we move to our last question and then we wrap up? To our live audience, if you want to send in your questions, I'm sorry you can't come on stage, but you can drop a comment. I should have said this earlier, but you do know that you can drop a comment on YouTube or on LinkedIn, whichever one you're streaming from, and we will catch it all here. All right, so Marie, do you want to throw some light on this first?
Yeah, I think from the get go, you need to know where your priority lies. And like Halel said, the sponsor of the project is your main priority and should be communicated to as often as possible. But
Yes.
as you go on in the project, some people may come up as priority and you need to pay attention to that. So I'll give you an example. There was a time I was planning an event in Port Harcourt, right? And I was in Abuja. So I was going to fly into Port Harcourt to, tidy up things. I had volunteers working in Port Harcourt. They've been talking to, we were planning to use a church for an event. So they've been talking to the pastor, everything seemed right. And we're meant to have a dress rehearsal the day before the event. And the pastor was aware. But guess what? When we got to that venue for the dress rehearsal, the place was locked. And I was like, what's going on? I said, but we told Pastor. And then I said, did anybody tell the facility manager we're going to use this space today? And I said, no, but we told the pastor. And I said, that's a very serious stakeholder that we should have prioritized. Number one, not just to open the space, but to ensure that we have power, we have enough diesel, we have security men on guard because it was going to be an evening thing. And the guy had closed and gone home.
Wow.
By the time we were calling, he said, "Ah, nobody told me we are going to use the space today." So he just came, did his regular work, and went home. And he said, "Oh, I wish he had told me. I wouldn't have turned on the gen for the number of hours I turned it on during the day because there were not so many people in the office. I would have reserved that diesel for you to use in the evening." So that's why I say, as the project is, evolving, there's some people that maybe at the beginning didn't seem to be your priority, but you get to some point, they become your priority. So you want to
Yeah.
keep them close. Otherwise, you will just be
True.
stuck. So thankfully, that guy came back, nice guy, opened up for us, just made it work, and we're able to do our thing. So that's what I'll have to say on this.
Nice guy indeed. Is he Nigerian? A Nigerian person that is struggling to enter bus will not come back for you. Okay,
No,
so as we wrap
it was
up
really nice.
in the next 10 minutes, our last question will go around navigating cultural and or organizational differences between stakeholders. Now, you know that our stakeholders cut across several industries, cultures. There might be people, there might be Nigerians, non-Nigerian, Nigerians but mixed, irrespective of the one Nigeria we claim. Um, how do you manage or how do you navigate cultural and or organizational differences between stakeholders? Now note that these differences may impact communication and or decision making, so you want to keep that at the back of your mind while you answer. Tomorrow go first, then Halil, and then we'll close in Jesus name.
Okay. So the thing is, especially for someone like me, I work on global projects, right? So I'm working with people across different continents. You need to have an open mind that there's diversity in the room. There are time zone differences in the room. So you need to consider that. And then you have communication barriers sometimes. I've been in a on a project where I had French speaking clients, so we had to have a French speaking colleague on that call all the time. So there are times where they also had to have an English speaking colleague in the room, such that if we happen to be just English speakers, because their English is not quite smooth as well because they're French speaking. So we had to balance that. There are times where we had someone from Latin America. I could hardly hear what she was saying, but I had to bring a colleague on board who has worked with some Latinos before and understand the accent. So it's understanding the diversity in the room and looking out for what works best for everybody. So you need to be asking questions. What time is best for you? What kind of communication style is best for you? Sometimes it may not be so much of talking, it may have to be more of charts and graphs. They can understand the bars. When the line graph is going up, they understand what it means. When the bar chart is dropping, they understand what it means, as opposed to you just talking through. So we need to understand the diversity in the room and together find the best communication method that would work for all and sundry. You maybe sometimes you send mails. If I don't know if you've seen your mail sometimes, if it's coming from someone who speaks a different language, to ask you for translation. So we had all kinds of mix of people, but we need to make everybody feel seen and heard on the project. So we are asking for what works best, and then we work around it. There are times that we have time zone differences. So we make sure that when we're constituting our team, we look for team members that are very near the time zone of the client, so that I'm not waking up at midnight to have a call because somebody is in the US and that's afternoon for them. Or the client will say, you know what, I can come in 1 hour earlier so that I can meet your early evening time and then we can have that conversation. So most of my East African, my East, what do you call, EST clients would jump on a meeting by 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. just to catch up our 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. time in the West African time zone. And we're able to have those meetings. Yeah, so that's what I'll say. I don't know if Halil has something to add or if Chema is back.
Hello, do you want to throw in something here? Chima is struggling with the network. If she comes in before we close, we'll have her speak. Otherwise, we'll close after Hello.
All right, so Lady B, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
So I'm asking if you have something to add to what Tobere has said regarding
Okay, okay.
navigating cultural or organizational differences between stakeholders.
All right. So currently, the project I'm working on is with Northerners, and I guess you can appreciate the differences. I grew up in the South, Igbo by tribe, So it's pretty different working with them.
What's the
So
nature? Let me You're
in
not
my
important.
office,
I'm done.
right?
Sorry.
So in my yes, okay. So in my office, on a day-to-day basis, I prefer to appear either on a casual outfit or corporate, as the case may be. But whenever I go to the state for stakeholder engagement, I try to keep it as traditional as possible so that they can feel comfortable, right? So that is a means of me making them feel comfortable, right? So when it comes to cultural differences, you just have to be as flexible as possible. And this thing called culture shock, to avoid it, find out about the people you're going to meet to avoid culture shock from happening, because it's pretty embarrassing when you are engaging with a client and you react in a certain way concerning something that is normal to them, right? So find out about your find out about that particular culture, find out about them, so that when they do something that is to you obscene, you will not begin to behave like, okay, what's going on here? Take for instance, right, in the middle of a serious stakeholder engagement meeting, and my boss just says like, oh, all right, it seems like it's time for prayer, so let's go on a break. And I'm like, in this kind of heat that we're going through right now, but yes, that has to happen because you're in the north, right? So you have to understand that, okay, these things are peculiar to them, so you have to appreciate them and make them feel comfortable. Okay, so the bottom line is, be environmentally intelligent, be environmentally smart. Learn a few things about their language. When they say something, when they greet you, or when they come around you, greet them in their dialect. Greet them the way they greet themselves. It makes them feel like, okay, you want to be a part of them, and it opens their hearts, or opens, yes, their hearts to you. So basically, it's all about being, in quotes, woke. Knowing what everybody is open to, and being ready to fit in to get what you want. Remember what I said at the beginning, be political, ready to get what you want. It's just like at the beginning of a project when you do your personal analysis. One of them is social. So when you do your social analysis and you do it properly, then culture shock is not going to come in. You're going to be ready to, you know, attend to all their cultural differences or organizational differences. Then speaking of organizational differences, I know we've mentioned it earlier in the conversation, but every organization is different. Trust me. At the beginning of this conversation, I said something. I said what you learn during training and what you meet on the field are totally different. Now, I'm a business analyst by the role given to me by my office. Tobere is a project manager and Choma is a product manager. And the truth is, in the actual books, the roles of these three people are different. But I believe if you come to each of our offices, you'd realize that our roles are intertwined one way or another. It's not because that is what they're meant to do, but because that's what the organization expects you to do. That's what the organization expects you to do. So, any organization you find yourself, understand what is expected of you from the organization and do what you're meant to do. So, I think we'll just call it a day. Yeah. Thank you so much, Lady B.
Hallel. Hallel. Wow.
That was nice.
And honestly, honestly, maybe the chair you are sitting on is also adding some chairman vibes to it, because I'm like, bro. So already you want to say something, and then we'll
Yeah,
close. Please. Chairman is
yeah.
coming.
When he was talking about culture shock, I was just saying to myself, ha, when Lady B is coming to the north, we'll have to tone down this her energy a bit, because my northern people may not, they may not understand it. You are too high for them. So it's good to just understand the culture. And like he said, if you're going to the north, for example, I can imagine how it was for him coming from the south. We're very boisterous, right? We our energy levels are high when we're even just talking. And in some places in the north, they're more reserved, they're calm. So when you're boisterous, they're wondering, what's the fight? I mean, we've not gotten to a fight. Meanwhile, you're not fighting. So you have to tone down. Your dressing may have to change. And for anyone listening, let me give you one hack. once you're talking to a Hausa man, if it is only the greeting that you know, please greet him in Hausa. Go and try it with the Suya man next to your house this night and give me feedback. Just greet him. Ya day or inaini. He will first of all give you Suya to taste. But if you just go there with your big English, he will not even give you no taste. So like today we were looking for something in the market, myself and my sister, and we were missing our way. So I now asked, there were three Hausa men, and I was like, where do they sell kitchen appliances? And one of them was trying to point in a direction. And then my sister just switched to Hausa and say, Inani Anna said the Kayan kitchen. And then one of them went, like you've come to our level. And then they directed us to the right place. So these things, they matter, where you get to understand the people, the language, even if it's just one liner, it just makes them feel like, oh, you know something in my language, and it helps to water the ground. So that's just what I wanted to add. So Lady B, when you're coming, don't worry, we'll get you ready for this environment.
Please, do I need to start taking classes? I need to start taking classes now. Choma is here, and Choma, very quickly, because we are rounding up. We are still talking about navigating cultural and organizational differences between stakeholders. You can go with your video off if you want to speak to this. If you do not want to speak to it, it's fine as well. I'm not sure the network is still very clear on her end. So I'm just going to bring this to a close in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I want to say to my audience on LinkedIn and on YouTube that we appreciate your presence. Thank you so much, Tobore. Thank you, Hallel. I cannot say thank you enough. Thank you so much, Chioma, for yielding to our call. This event is brought to you by BAMS Academy, where BAMS is BAMS, Business Analysis Made Simple, and it is an academy that is set up to train business analysts from 0 to 5. So you don't know what business analysis is about, but you want to consider it as a career, send me a DM and we can talk about it. Clarity sessions are free. If you need mentorship on project management, Tobere is your person. If you need mentorship on IT business analysis, there's only one business analyst you should know, because I don't know what I am, whether me I'm onions, but we'll accept it like that. Halal is your person. If you're looking to transition into product management, or maybe you are there but you are lost, you don't know how to navigate, Chioma is your person. Just tell them. In fact, your discount code is Lady B. Just tell them Lady B, and they are obliged to attend. That's the letterhead. Lady B is the letterhead, not anyhow A4 paper. You understand? If you cannot relate, I'm sorry. All right. Thank you so much for coming. And with this, we bring this event to a close in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you, LinkedIn.
For
Thank you,
having
YouTube.
us. Bye.